To stay elite, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to trade up in this draft. Who are they going for? We're going to find out today on Mock Draft Monday here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Hope you are ready. It is Mock Draft Monday again, one of my favorite days of the week, every day, whatever you like. We're brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. It's the easiest way, the most fun way to be an NFL GM on your phone. Manage your own football team franchise, get it all done, and we have a great deal for you. It's over at ultimate-gm.com, or you can look it up on any of the app stores. It lets you be the GM for a day, and if you use our code Locked On, you can get 100% boost, and that's at ultimate-gm.com. We're going to go through what I think is one of the common scenarios that people want to see. They just don't know how it's going to fall out. So today we are going to run a 3-round mock draft for you based on a first-round trade. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, home of the Athletic Matrix that you can pre-order over at rogueapc.com, as well as NFL33.com, where we do all of our draft work, and RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark, and I've been covering the Chiefs for about 7 years, and I talk all things analytics and the salary cap. So if you have any questions on that, you can hit me up at Locked On Chiefs or Chiefs Corner. Also, they're taking questions on Chiefs cap, and I can actually talk about salary cap for all the teams. But that's neither here nor there. There's a lot to talk about when we start looking at this specific trade, because I think that this is a situation where Kansas City has all these draft picks, and they're not going to be able to have all those players on their team.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And what we've gone with the scenario, and we're starting to play around with what the value has to be. Now, the Chiefs executed a draft up last year to get Trent McDuffie. We're basing this on a similar proposition that the organization likely is going to see the same thing. Someone's going to fall to them that's going to get them motivated to trade up. And if you have to give up a third or a fourth and some change, the Chiefs have a lot of picks and a lot of compensatory ones that are able to be traded now. That's key. So what we've done is run a couple of scenarios. We're going to put this up on the screen here. And what that's going to do is show you where we are right now after having executed that trade. The top of the draft came in this simulation with Jalen Carter at the top, staying with the Bears. Then Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Will Levis goes to the Indianapolis Colts. That sets up a little bit of a trigger, and I think is partially why we were able to do this, because when we get to this point, we were able, as the Kansas City Chiefs, to trade up to number 23. We did have to give up some capital. It was obviously the Chiefs pick at 31, as well as 133, and a pair of the compensatory picks. But it got us to 23. And that's what's key now, because as we looked at the board, we saw Christian Gonzalez, probably the top corner on my board, go. CJ Stroud ended up going to the Raiders. That's something to keep an eye on. And then you got into the tackles, the part that was going to be the sweet spot for me in the lower, I was hoping, teens into the 20s. It didn't quite happen. Paris Johnson went 11. You end up getting Skoronski and Broderick Jones back-to-back at 19 and 20. So the tackles were pretty much off the board. Ensign Harris went at 21. Probably a little high for him, but that's okay. We also then went on to, what are the edges doing? Lucas Van Ness got overdrafted in this scenario. Not a ton of edges, but nobody that really stood out to us. So we took a look at wide receiver. And, Chris, I think you had your eye on somebody that really was not my wide receiver one, but Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnson were already off the board.
Yeah, they're both gone by 10 and 12 in this scenario. So that leaves the wide receiver out of Ohio State. And I think you're looking at a situation where Kansas City needs to upgrade the wide receiver position. Obviously, they have Tony, they have Sky Moore. MVS is on the roster right now. We don't know what free agency is going to be, but in this scenario, we're looking at taking Jaxon Smith-Njigba.
And that's the big question. You'll notice that Anthony Richards has fallen in this scenario. And there are a couple other players that could be fits for Kansas City. Joey Porter would really fit. But after all the work that we've seen from the rookie CBs, I don't know if that's in the cards. People are going to tell you that Zay Flowers should be above JSN. On my board, I disagree. So I think this is showing what probably most of the league is going to think, that JSN is in the top 3. Is Michael Mayer an option here? He probably could be. He is the big tight end that is really the antithesis of what Travis Kelce is. He's more like George Kittle in that he is an inline Y that blocks really well and can catch. I don't know that we go there. We're going to have the tight end discussion in coming weeks. Don't you worry. And remember, we are here 5 days a week, so we're going to have a lot of arguments about what this is going to be. So it becomes, do you take wide receiver 2 on my board here in the third wide receiver position in Jaxon Smith-Njigba, a guy who did not play much this last season? I think it was 3 games. I think it was 6 targets. That's not much, but he was electric in 2021. He was easily the best receiver on the field for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And if you ask the guys that are successful in the league, in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, they'll tell you that he's the best out of all of them.
Yeah, and he, as you said, didn't play much last year, but I don't think that scares Kansas City. If they think the medical is going to check out, I don't think that worries them. Look at what they were talking about doing with Jameson Williams last year. A lot of smoke about them trading up to go get him. So I don't think that the medical is going to scare them off as long as they've seen the medical information and they feel good with it.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. We know about the staff and what they're capable of doing. So is that the direction that we as an organization have decided to go?
It is for me. That's my choice for the Chiefs in the first round.
And today, folks, I'm playing the part of Mike Borgonzi, and Chris is Brett Veach. So I've been overridden, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba is a Kansas City Chief. And we're going to let that tick down. We're not going to worry about that when we get back. We're going to get into our second pick right behind this.
And I want to tell you about our friends over at Pro Football GM. And this is an amazing game. I've really enjoyed playing this. We did have a Locked On NFL Hosts League, and I took third in that. Chris Carter took first. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Went through 25 seasons, won a couple of Super Bowls. The thing I like about this is it gives you the chance to compete against other people, and you get to see how you stack up year to year. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise, your dream can come true with this game, and it is definitely for you. You'll manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through seasons, and lead your team to glory trying to build a dynasty. You will hire the right coaches and coordinators, trade players, navigate your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. We've created a Locked On League for you to compete against Locked On fans all over the world. Can you be the ultimate Locked On Football GM? Choose the Locked On League in the app to join. Can you create a football dynasty? Locked On Chiefs listeners get 100% free boost to their franchise when using promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps, so make sure to check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today.
Now, what we've seen while we were going through this is the second round has come through. Anthony Richardson ended up going in the first, Bijan Robinson right at the tail end, and Luke Musgrave came off the board with what was the Chiefs' previous pick that we traded with the Minnesota Vikings. A couple of guys that we did talk about went as well. Michael Mayer lasted till 38. A little surprised by that. Siaki Ika went. I know some folks have been talking about him lately. A couple of the edges that I thought were decent fits if you wanted to get speedy, and Will McDonald went off the board. You came back, and even Tanner McKee got out of here in the 50s. And I'm pretty high on Tanner McKee, and that's even rich for my blood. B.J. Ojulari and Nolan Smith are the two guys that if the Chiefs were going to play more odd fronts, they could work into that. They are guys that can play rush end. They can play the overhang that Willie's been playing as well. Like there's some options there, but they're both gone now. And so we get down, and this is the scenario that we had to scope out. When you go wide receiver in the first round, what does that leave you at the offensive tackle spot and the edge spot? That's what we're going to look for, because the Chiefs have an all-pro center. They don't need John Michael Schmidt. They have an interesting selection possibility here in Matthew Bergeron, who I think actually had a better Senior Bowl than a lot expected. They could come back inside. Zach Charbonnet would be an interesting fit in this offense. I love his downhill ability, but I'm not taking a running back in the second round. I just won't do it. Mike Morris is a guy that I think can play outside, but I'm not convinced about the production. So I probably can't do it at 63. Do you like him much, or do you think that there's a player that stood out so far?
With what you're looking at right now, I don't see a specific player that's sticking out. There's a lot of different players. I agree with you. I don't think I would take a running back at this point. I don't think you take a second round running back after you saw what you got last year from Isaiah Pacheco in the 7th round. There's going to be plenty of talent. I think that you need to be looking edge, maybe a safety if there was somebody there. I don't think that they'd be looking at corner. Linebacker, they've kind of already filled out. And then you start talking about tackles.
You got to talk about the tackles. And Bergeron's interesting. I'm really keen to see what his length measures out at, because the combine's going to tell us that. I know there was a measurement at the Senior Bowl, and I'm not 100% that I'm on board with that. So, but he had a decent Senior Bowl. He's a guy that can play multiple positions. There is a question of whether a team is going to want to put him in at guard, and that is a question that I think is a legitimate ask. The guy that's the big underdog here for me is Jaelyn Duncan. He is maybe the most athletic after Broderick Jones in terms of being able to have pure movement, but he's younger. He's less strong. He has a couple of things that he has to work on in addition. Byron Young, the version from Tennessee. He's the edge rusher. Options there. I would be inclined in this situation right now to trade back again if we could. That might take some doing, especially right now, given that we are on the time constraint. I think we should just pick a solution here. Does something stand out to you, Mr. Veach?
Yeah, but you're not gonna like it. There's a name that keep scrolling. There's a name that stood out to me that there's a lot of people talking about him right now, and he's from Georgia.
Oh, this kid that Antonio Gates 2.0?
Yep.
People have called him that, and I think it's a misnomer. I'm just going to tell you that. Can you avoid the top two needs for this team in edge and offensive tackle in order to take another tight end after you just took a wide receiver?
I don't think you can, but with the way the board's falling, if you're not going to trade back, and I don't think the value is there to take edge or wide receiver, or edge or tackle right now with the way that you're saying it stacks out. That's why I was looking at a different position.
I can understand that. Really, it comes down to me you can't go Jalen Hyatt here, and I know a lot of folks want to see him in this offense as well. Not something that I'm comfortable with right now when you just took JSN. Now, JSN's going to have to play in the slot. You need somebody that can be outside that can win against man. I don't see that being an option. So, Darnell Washington, interesting player. A lot of question, though. Not exactly a smooth accelerator, not a route runner as much as he is a behemoth of a man that is overly athletic than you would expect for his size. But I don't know that you can go and grab him. So it comes down to value for me. I would probably take Jaelyn Duncan over Matthew Bergeron if there's a chance. But given that the Chiefs' next selection that we have is going to be way down here at 95, I don't know if we can take that chance. So I'm tempted to use a second-round pick here at 63 on Jaelyn Duncan. A bit of a reach, I will admit, but something that may get you there because I don't see defensive line that makes me go crazy. I like Moro Ojomo. I've been on him since early in this last season. I do think 85 is about where he belongs. So I don't know that I'd reach as much for him as I would for much less of a talent-heavy pool at tackle. And then edge is going to get real thin real fast is the problem. So Derek Hall's the other one that the other guy that might have a conversation here. If you fall too much farther in the third round, you're looking at Zach Harrison, KJ Henry, who would be the best two in this group on the board, in my opinion, but both need some time to develop as well. So where does that leave you? I'm probably leaning towards Jaelyn Duncan right here. What do you say?
Can he play left tackle? Do you think he can play left tackle eventually?
I do.
Then I think that's the direction you go.
Okay.
Because to me, that is the biggest question mark going for Kansas City going into this season is what are you going to do? Because more than likely, they're not going to be able to sign Orlando Brown Jr. to an extension.
That's gonna be the big challenge. Now we have trade offers at number 3. We're going to get to that after this. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where championships are earned. The Chiefs have been really successful on day 2. We got one pick in. Now we're going to make the other. And don't worry, folks. We're going to change the scenario up next Monday. Don't miss a Monday if you want to see as many scenarios as possible before the Chiefs actually get to draft day. And if you would, like, sub, and hit the bell over on YouTube. So we've seen one of my favorite wide receiver prospects go off the board just now, and A.T. Perry just ahead of us. Moro Ojomo, who I was talking about from Texas, just went off the board as well. Drew Sanders is getting a lot of hype. I don't know that he lasts to 87 like he did here, but it could be a possibility. And your guy, Darnell Washington, did go at 76. So your instinct was correct, is that there's going to be interest in him there. I think we did well to sneak in here and get Bergeron. I'm sorry, to get Jaelyn Duncan and get the guy.
And Hyatt went right after. Sorry.
He did. Luckily, the Chiefs had a wide receiver. So that brings us back here to how can we get edge rush? And is that the way that we have to go? Really qualified nickel here in Clark Phillips, a guy that might just let Jerry Sneed move out to the boundary full time. That could be something that really changes the scope of the defense. And the third is someplace that I think you could get away with doing that. Folks are going to be interested in Jordan Battle. I don't know that he's a scheme guy that I really want as much versatility from him. Didn't have the greatest year. I really want to break down Brandon Joseph's film. I just haven't been able to get a good copy of a couple of them, so I'm holding off on my opinion there. Safety isn't necessarily the big focus here. It really is. If we're going to round out the top three in a 3-round draft, it has to be edge. And so are you okay if we just focus on that position?
It's fine if there's talent there. If there's not, then I think you have to look elsewhere. Because one of the things that Kansas City is continuing to do is they have stayed true to their board, and they've taken players where they think they should be drafted. And I think that is one of the things that you have to do when you're drafting players is you have to stay true to your board, or you're going to get reaches. And if you look at, past scenarios, they went and reached in a guy like Kendo, and it hasn't worked out for him at this point. So stay true to your board is, I guess, really what I would say.
Yeah. Now, I'm a little bit higher on KJ Henry just because it's upside. He is not as refined as you would like to see. Byron Young, people are going to tell you, is a more progressed player, and I can live with that. Zach Harrison, I think, is terribly inconsistent. It drives me nuts when I watch him, but he does have physical tools, as does Byron Young. I don't know why I keep messing his name up today, but for me, it is a 3-way look right between those guys. Harrison has good power. Young has good power. KJ has a better first step. Again, doesn't know exactly where he's going as much, but in my current rankings, KJ Henry would actually be above both of these other players, not by a ton, but by a little bit, and then it would be Byron Young.
But a good first step is huge for an edge rusher. And the thought right now, at least from what I have read, the thought right now is Frank Clark is going to be back in Kansas City this year. Not at his current cap number, but they are probably going to work something out to where he can be back. And if he has the ability to come in and take KJ Henry under his wing, much like he did Karlaftis, I think that could be something that would be good for them.
And I agree with you there. That is something that's going to be needed. Now, they list him at 260. I'm not sure he plays that heavy, but honestly, Frank played at like 235 this year, so I'm not terribly concerned about it.
But 24 years old as a rookie. That's interesting.
It is a bit older. That's fair. If we want to compare Zach Harrison here as well, we can do that. Just 21 and a half. Significantly larger human being at 6'6". His arm length is going to come in longer, and he's playing at 272. That's what he was listed at. I think he'll be slightly lighter than that, maybe in the 260, 264 range kind of thing. And I'll give you a look at Byron Young as well. Much more the outside OLB, what we thought Will Anderson might do and stay outside as a stand-up linebacker more. This is less a fit for the Spags Classic than we're used to, but then so is Frank Clark. So we have to take that into account as well.
Yeah, but Clark came before Spags, so but he's made them successful. So I think you start looking at, if you go edge, I think your guy makes a lot of sense, even at 24, because the other thing you need to think about is this is a 3rd-round pick. So 3rd-round picks only get 4-year contracts. He's going to be 28 when his contract is up.
Yes, it is likely, unless he really, really sprouts, to be a possible one contract and out.
Yep.
So you could look at other value here. Trevon Dexter, interesting player, about the right rank. He's in this groove here, in between these players. We talked about safety a little bit. I haven't gotten to watch Broderick Martin yet, the Western Kentucky prospect. But if they really want to shore up, if you want to go a different direction, you want to shore something up, Keondre Coburn is more similar to Colin Saunders than I think most people appreciate. He does have some pass rush, but he's a giant man. I think he's listed at 325. We're about to find out. Let's see. I'm sorry, 343. He is a human spark plug. But he surprisingly can get after the ball. Now, I do like Moro Ojomo better as a 3-tech. But if you're talking about somebody that can maybe replace Derek Nottie, strong against the run, and does give you more pass rush upside than Nottie does, Keondre Coburn would be an option there. I do find him possible here. I would be tempted, and I would say this, if we were to take Roschon Johnson here where he's ranked at 119 rather than Bijan Robinson at 28, I think that's still a pretty good deal. But we're not going running back. So I think I am comfortable with either Keondre Coburn or more likely KJ Henry for me as Mike Borgonzi. But Mr. Veach, how do you feel?
Interior pass rush is king over an edge. So if you think that he could provide pass rush and take over Nottie's spot, I think that's more value. It gives you the ability to have somebody that can maybe, is he going to be a guy that can go in and eat double teams? Because if he can do that next to Chris Jones, that's huge.
Now, so will Dexter, and I'd have to look at the prospective rates of pressure. Let's see if I can find that here quickly. So we're looking at grand total of 25 on 347 snaps for Mr. Dexter. And then we're going to compare to Keondre, who at one point was leading the defensive interior lineman this year in pressures. And he tallied, looks like 31 on 100 less pass rush snaps. So I think that should tell you that the pressure rate is significantly better for Keondre Coburn.
Yeah, and I think that that's the direction you got to go.
Well, Mr. Coburn, we just made a Longhorn Chief. Welcome to Kansas City. I hope that you like that. Folks, now this is a scenario in a number that will come through. We'd like your feedback. We'd like to know the picks you liked, the picks you didn't like. Where would you have gone? What would you have done? You can leave that all in the comments here on YouTube. You can also go into the reviews on Spotify and Apple. Leave them there. You can hit us at Locked On Chiefs with your take from this episode. If you would, make sure that you include the link here. Tweet us back the link for the show so we know which scenario you're talking about before we start getting confused. We would appreciate that. That's, I think, a decent scenario. Not exactly what I would prescribe, but now we know what it looks like. How do you feel about it?
I feel pretty good. I think that if you can get JSN with your first pick, if he can develop into a guy that can be your number one wideout, I think that you are going to be very happy with that draft. Overall. And if you can get interior pressure, it's going to help your edges as well. So I will say this. I look at the edge a little bit differently than probably some do. I think Mike Dana can be that guy. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you necessarily would get 10 sacks from, but I think he can play edge, and I think he can get pressure off the edge, and he gives you something inside as well. So I do think that they need another edge, and I would love to see them be able to get one in this scenario. I don't think that that's going to be possible. So
actually, in this scenario, the two other guys that we were just talking about at the last pick lasted a full round later. So we could have our pick. So just in terms of sticking with the Spags protocol, we'll just make a bonus pick here, folks, at pick 123. We'll take Zach Harrison too. How you like that?
There you go. Then you're set up. Then you have interior pass rush with Chris Jones and Coburn, and now you have exterior pass rush with Harrison. So in
absolutely.
That scenario, I think you got your team a lot better. And you, like I said, I mean, you're not going to be able to have 12 picks. So that's what this is going to come down to. And that's why I think that trading up is a realistic scenario for Kansas City, because I do think somebody's going to drop. Because as you see every single year, QBs get pushed up the draft board, which is going to push everybody else down.
It certainly does. And I'm racing here to try to make these final selections so we can get a nice quick review of what we were able to accomplish here. I'm just taking guys that I like for one reason or another, like this guy who might be the next Jody Fortson, who moves into tight end. Let's see, and pick right behind that. Let's see, does anybody stand out?
Do you like the BYU QB?
Jaron? I mean, at this point in the draft, absolutely. Is he there? Okay, yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Developmental QB. Let's see who else is there because I thought I just saw another one just in case. DTR. I would probably go DTR over him, but that's just me. Let's
Take
go
who? Okay.
We'll go Jaron because you spotted him. Good call. Good call. And then who's the best?
I just think that they're going to be looking at developmental QB in the coming years.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And folks, we hadn't planned on going all the way out, but you know what? We're going to have a little fun with it and try to get her done. Just for giggles, let's go Travis Dye and get another like speed dude that I think can exploit defenses. So a good exercise. We'll do another one for you next Monday, and we'll have more fallout here. See what the analysis is on this particular site. And as soon as we get more relative deals,
Didn't like the trade.
No, didn't like the trade, and that's okay. Got an A player though, and I'll take that. And what we will find is as we use different machines here on the process, we will see different grades in different scenarios. So I hope that you enjoyed this. Hope you had a good Monday.
An A+ on round 4.
Got to dig it, right?
Yeah, and the QB got an A as well. So didn't like the trade, but I still like the player, so I'm happy with it.
Okay. Let us know what you think. Thank you for spending your Mock Monday with us. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Matt Derrick's coming this week. We have all of the breakdown ready for free agency, and then on to the combine is right around the corner. Thank you for listening to us today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.